Hello gamers, this is Tom Sidener, the Lonely Gamer, and today I'm going to take a look at the expansion to Bang the Dice game, Old Saloon. I picked this up at Gen Con. My game group really likes Bang the Dice game, and so we're going to see what this expansion adds to the game. Now first of all, this is a module expansion for the game. It has 5 different modules that come in the expansion. You can add one or all, or just a select few to the game, depending on what your game group likes to do. So in the box, what you get is you get 2 new dice. One of these is the Coward's dice, and one of these is a Loudmouth dice. They're a little bit different color than the original dice. I'll show you here an original dice. The original dice are very white, and these new dice are kind of an off-white. It makes it easy to see, which dice that you have. So the first module is actually the dice. So you can add these dice to your game. They're very simple to use. If a player wants to use one of the new dice, they just replace one of the old dice with the new dice. So let's say I normally would roll the 5 white dice. I can in turn go ahead and remove one of the white dice, add one of the new dice, either the Loudmouth or the Coward dice, into my pool. You cannot add both per the instructions. You can only add one or the other of the dice to your hand, and then you're going to go ahead and just roll the dice as normal, and you get your same re-rolls as you would in a normal game, and you would just apply what's on the replaced dice. Now, what is on these dice? Okay, well, first let's look at the Coward dice. So the Coward dice is there to help you reduce your arrows. So it has a broken arrow symbol on the dice, and it allows you to remove arrows from your arrow stack and put them back in the pool. But it also does have an arrow on it, so you still run the risk of adding arrows. The Coward dice has some similar faces to the regular dice, so it has an arrow. It has a mug, which heals you, so it has that. It also has a dynamite, so that's there, and it has a single hit for somebody adjacent to you. So those are all the same as regular dice. The 2 different sides that it has that the other dice do not have is it has the broken arrow, which we mentioned, where you can remove an arrow, and it also has a double heal. So if you're really hurting for life, you might roll this dice to try to hopefully get the double heal. Now let's look at the Loudmouth dice. The Loudmouth dice has a lot of different sides. It doesn't have as many common sides as the Coward's dice. So it does have a couple common sides. It has the dynamite, which is common, and it also has the arrow, which is common. But other than that, it has all different sides. So the first thing is it has a bullet side. Now, because you're a Loudmouth, you might accidentally shoot yourself in the foot. So if you roll this bullet side, then you have to do damage to yourself. The damage caused by this bullet applies immediately. So as soon as you roll it, you take the damage. You can re-roll it, but if you roll it again, then you take another damage. So you could take multiple damage in a turn from the bullet. The next thing it has is it has double faces. So it has a double 1. So you could do 2 damage to adjacent opponents. It has a double 2. So you could do 2 damage to opponents who are not adjacent, but to the right or left of those guys. It also has a double Gatling, so you can add, this would be 2 plus 1 would fire off your Gatling. So it has some double faces as well. So it's pretty powerful dice. So that's Module 1, the dice. Module 2 is the Indian Chief's arrow. The Indian Chief arrow is added to the pool of arrows. The instructions don't say that you take out an arrow. I guess you could take out an arrow if you wanted to, or you could just add it to the pile of arrows. If you add it to the pile of arrows and you don't take one out, it's just going to make it longer before the Indians attack. So I guess that's up to you. The instructions do not say one way or another. But anyway, you're going to add it to the pile of arrows. At any time, a player may take the Indian Chief's arrow instead of a normal arrow. If you take the Indian Chief's arrow and you have less arrows than the other players, let's say you had the Indian Chief arrow and 3 other arrows, and another person had 5 arrows, you would actually take 2 damage for this Indian Chief arrow. So you'd have 3, 4, 5 damage instead of 4 damage. So the question is, why would anybody take the Indian Chief arrow? Well, that's because if you have the most arrows of anybody, let's say you have 7 and somebody else only has 3 or 4, then you would take no damage. So taking the Indian Chief arrow is kind of a push your luck mechanism. Take it if you've just got a slew of arrows. Take the Indian Chief arrow, and when the Indians attack, you'll take no damage, and all your arrows will go back. If you've got a couple arrows and somebody's really got a lot more arrows than you, you do not want to take the Indian Chief arrow. If the Indian Chief arrow is the last arrow, then you'll be forced to take it, and that could cause you 2 damage instead of 1 if you've only got a couple arrows. The third module in this expansion is the Special Rolls module. You'll get some special roll cards. These cards are identical to the cards that come in the base set, except for they actually have special abilities. This module actually reminds me a lot of Shadow Hunters. Shadow Hunters is a game that we play a lot. Everybody has a roll, and your roll is hidden. Nobody knows who you are. But when you flip your roll over, you have a special ability that you can complete after you flip it over. You have to be revealed before you can actually use your special roll, and these are the same way. So the only one that's kind of unrevealed is the Sheriff, because the Sheriff is always revealed. The Sheriff gives you extra bullets at the beginning of the game. You get that immediately on starting the game. The Deputy says reveal this card at the start of your turn. You become the new Sheriff, and the old Sheriff becomes a Deputy. So it lets you switch places with the Sheriff when you reveal your card. There's another Deputy that says reveal this card after any dice roll. Turn 1 dice to show the side of your choice. Okay. There's another Deputy that says reveal this card immediately after another player reveals his roll. That player's roll has no effect and may no longer be used. So it cancels the effect of another roll. We've got an Outlaw that says reveal this card after another player's last roll. That player must re-roll all of his dice and accept the new results. We have an Outlaw that says reveal this card at the start of your turn. Exchange the arrows held by any 2 players. So you can exchange the pools of arrows of any 2 players in the game. This Outlaw says reveal this card when another player is about to gain life points. That player does not gain those life points. And then there's 2 Renegade cards. One of them says reveal this card when any player is about to be eliminated. That player stays in the game with 2 life points and may discard all of his arrows. And then we've got another Renegade that says reveal this card at the end of your turn. Immediately take another turn. And then we've got a Ghost Renegade, which is used with the Ghost expansion. Now these cards only allow you to use them once per game. So once you use them, the benefit is lost and you cannot use them again. The Sheriff is used at the beginning and cannot be used again throughout the game. So that's the third module, the Special Rolls. The next module, the fourth module, is a Posse of New Characters. So this is just a bunch of new characters that you can add to the game. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 new characters that this adds to the game. One is Molly Stark, and she says each time another player must lose 1 or more life points, you can lose them in his place. So this one actually will take damage away from other players on your team. Bill No Face, apply arrow results only after your last roll. So he can ignore arrows except for the final arrows of your turn. Doc Holliday, each time you use 3 or more 1s and or 2s, you also regain 2 life points. So he heals when he does 3 damage to somebody either using the 1s or 2s. Jose Delgado, he says you may use the Loudmouth dice without replacing a base dice. So you could roll 6 dice with this, one of them being the Loudmouth dice. The Apache Kid, if you roll an arrow, you may take the Indian Chief's arrow from another player. So, Tequila Joe, he says you may use the Coward dice without replacing a base dice. So you could roll 6 dice with him as well, just with the Coward dice instead of the other dice. Elena Fuente, Each time you roll one or more arrows, you may give one of those arrows to a player of your choice. So you can hand out arrows. That could be a very nice ability to have. And Vericuster, each time you must lose life points for 1s or 2s, you lose 1 life point less. So she has kind of almost a built-in defense mechanism. So that's the 4th expansion, which is just more of the same from the base game, more rolls. Now the 5th and final expansion is the Ghost expansion. The Ghost expansion is only supposed to be used in a 5 or more player game. When the first player in the game is eliminated, instead of being eliminated, what they do is they take the Ghost character and they lay it on top of their character. So the first thing it does is it negates the special ability that the player once had. Then what the person who has the Ghost character does is they, instead of rolling all 5 dice, they only roll 2 dice. So they roll 2 dice as the Ghost character. They have 1 re-roll, so they'll say I didn't like this, I can roll again. Once they're done rolling, they go ahead and select one of the faces. So let's say I select the mug. You have a token for each face on the dice. You pick one of the dice, you give that token to another player. When it's the other player's turn, the first thing they do on their turn is they take their dice, and before they roll them, they put 1 dice on the face that you gave them, and they return that chip to the Ghost. Then they can only roll 4 dice on their turn. They can, however, re-roll this dice after the first roll. So on their next roll, they could re-roll it. Unless you give them the dynamite, which of course they cannot re-roll. If you give them an arrow, they must immediately take an arrow. If you happen to roll doubles as the Ghost, as I did here, dynamite, you give them the token for the item. You give them the token for the item that you rolled, and you also give them the 2 times token. So that means that on their turn, they must set 2 dice to that, and in this case, it would be 2 dynamite, and they could not even re-roll those. So the Ghost is not allowed to use these special dice. The Ghost doesn't take any damage. The Ghost is not really, playing, other than they could still win if their team wins. So if you are the deputy and the sheriff wins, you win along with your sheriff team. So as the Ghost, you can still win, but you don't have any life points, so nobody is giving you any damage. Also, you are ignored when it comes to adjacency. So if I was the Ghost and I had a person here and a person here, this person would be a 1 to this person. They would skip right through me because I'm the Ghost. And that's it. That's the 5 modules that come in the Bang Saloon expansion. It's a really nice expansion. Most of the modules are fun. I think I will probably be using them all in my game. If you have any questions, please leave a comment down below and I'll try to answer it. Hopefully I covered everything. Otherwise, I'm Tom Sidener. I'm the Lonely Gamer, and happy gaming.